Hello everyone. My video this week is going to be probably a part of a series because it involves a post that I found a couple of years ago on Facebook. It was a comment on a description of androgyny. And so I wish I knew who the author was, but I refound this, a copy of this in my archives. And I thought it'd be fun to read it and sort of critique it. I found a lot of agreement with what was in this thing. So I'm going to go ahead and read the first part, and I'll break off and have commentary on some of the things. So I'm going to put on my glasses because I'm blind as a bat. Alright, so here we go. We live on Earth, not on Mars, so we base it off of our world. In order for us to feel male or feel female and recognize that, we have to know labels first and what those labels mean. Cisgender people as kids do not feel like they are any gender. They are told their body is one gender and go, okay. Then they are told, since you have this body, you wear these clothes designed for that body, and they go, okay, and they socialize, learn, you behave in this way, and they go, may not like that fully, but okay. Alright, I'm going to stop there. This is so true. This is my own thinking as well. I don't think when we're born into this world we automatically are set to behave certain ways or look certain ways or dress certain ways. I think it is socially pushed upon us. Socialization. There's some aspects of socialization that are good, but I think there are some aspects of socialization that are not so good. And this is definitely one of the areas where I feel it's not so good. Alright. So, the rest is just conformity. The need to be the same for fear of being different. Yes. We are told to appear certain ways, and if we appear outside those ways, we're outside the norm, and we're not good. We're viewed in a different light. Not only do I do androgyny, but my style is goth, and goths oftentimes get heat for the way they dress and the way they appear. And it is also all a sort of, if I don't stay within the lines, I'm going to get beat up. Or if I don't follow the rules, I'm going to be in trouble. And unfortunately, there are also some families where if a boy shows themselves doing things that are so-called feminine or something to that effect, the child gets beaten. Yeah, I'm pretty sure while I know that children get beaten, or at least they get threatened to be beaten by their father, and at times by their mother, who support some pretty bullshit things. Alright. If there were no humans besides ourselves, no media, no clothing stores, no socialization, no labels, we wouldn't know what gender is. We'd just live in whatever we were born into and never think about it. Because at first, that's how it starts. It's only the introduction of those labels and definitions is what forces us to go, I don't like this, I need something else, which forces us to seek alternatives and new definitions. Leading to transgender identities, androgynous, gender non-conforming, non-binary, gender fluid, cross-dressers, femme, butch, and so forth. These are all labels. They are all labels to designate certain styles, certain looks. As you all know, I identify with my style, I identify as androgynous, and yes, I do consider myself gender non-conforming. I don't consider myself transgender, and I don't consider myself non-binary. I am male, I'm masculine, despite the way I look, and I identify as such. Other people have other ways of doing things, and there's no harm there. Alright, so some of us, however, who never applied a self-label to us, and who didn't conform, but that didn't think about it, became subject to social castration, where they were removed from society socially, and straight cis people go, "You are gay, and I am not gay. I am not like you. You are wrong. You need to be punished. Being gay is wrong." And this happens to all gender non-conforming people. If that person does not conform, they keep this treatment up. Yes, all too often I see gender nonconformity being conflated with homosexuality. And lately it's been all about trans. So it's about being trans or homosexual. And I think these two things they do occur. It does occur that sometimes gender nonconformists are homosexual. But most of the time, or a lot of the time, it's not. It's just the person wants to have a different form of expression, wants to be able to dress in ways that they were sort of told they couldn't. Yeah, it's a very insidious thing in our culture. All right, and yes, if a person does not conform, well, people are going to keep treating them like crap. Now, this is thankfully finally dying away, but for the longest time that's how it was. If I dressed up like this when back in the 70s or 80s, I'd probably be put in a funny farm. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think there would be a high chance of that. And that's bullshit. That should never, ever have been a thing. Eventually, the new socialized self as different, gay, and wrong leads that person to a forced coming out as bisexual, gay, transgendered, a queen, they censored fag for some reason, and whatever else. Most people on here, on this page, more than likely are these people. Like I said, this was in a discussion group about gender nonconformity, and you're kind of right. I think a lot of people were there were very much like myself. They just wanted more freedom of expression. All right. All people in the transgendered realm, transgender, I put transgendered, but it's transgender realm, cross-dresser, androgynous, non-binary, trans woman, trans man, were called gay by society due to gender nonconformity. They take it as nonconformity, as if it's some intentional rebellion, but fake. All of us are simply being ourselves, and we got labeled, socialized by the world as transgender. This is common. I think I've spoken out about this before. I do not consider myself transgender, as I am not trying to change the gender which I identify as. I identify as male, as I've already stated. I don't fool around. I don't play trap games either. Uh-oh. Oh no. 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 Oh, this thing's so sensitive sometimes. Okay. Alright. Okay. Now you're asking essentially, are you really your gender identity from your heart and transgender, or were you socially pushed by being different? I was the latter, and I believe most trans people in here are the latter. So what this is dealing with is how people are people like myself, sort of feel like we have to identify as transgender in order to be able to express ourselves. For instance, I did a video about this earlier. It was about how the transgender movement had pushed a school to change its dress code to, instead of saying all students shall dress in accordance with their gender, it said a student may dress in accordance with the gender they choose. And my protesting on that was it shouldn't say that either. It should say a student should be able to dress however they wish as long as what they are wearing falls within the length and decency protocols of our school. And any bullying, and this caveat, any bullying a student upon what they wear will not be tolerated. In other words, go after the bullies that are making fun of the boy wearing the skirt, opposed to going after the boy in the skirt. Okay. All right. The only ones who aren't are true transsexuals, where as a child an inner voice told them they are an opposite sex. Nobody told them they weren't. Nobody told them they weren't. No trauma, normal development, just born in the wrong body. For everyone else on the transgender realm, I believe we never would come to the conclusion of our identity without being removed and pushed from society. Society pushes non-binary people to be gay. Society pushes non-binary people to get a sex change. And they shame us for sitting and winding up where we are, when really it's them who caused it in the first place. It's a little harsh. I would say that society does kind of push us. It pushes certain people for sure. I'm an unusual example. I know this. But my muses are people like David Bowie and people like Ross Williams and Mona Desmois. They all identify as male, or identified as male, but they just had their own style. They did so-called feminine things. And, you know, what's wrong with our society is there's something wrong with feminine and guys expressing it, where women are sort of encouraged at times to express masculinity. I believe almost all of us would be the dreaded straight white cis male scum if it wasn't for us being pushed out, because we were just being ourselves. It's not rebellion, but they start picking at you like, who do you do this? Or why do you do this? I'm sorry. Why do you do this and that? Sorry, this is worded really wrong. Why do you do this and this and this and this? Are you gay? And that's where it all starts. Then we don't trust them anymore, and we separate ourselves from them. Since they did it to us, form our own communities, and voila, here we are. This speaks very much to me. I love my mother. I love her very much, but when I was growing up, she drove a wedge, or we drove a wedge between each other, because she would insult me by insinuating that I must be gay because I liked wearing leggings. She referred to my leggings as faggy pants or as fairy pants. And one of the more hilarious incidences was I had come home from school, and I was going to be going over to my girlfriend's house. And on that day I decided to wear, or not on that day, I was just going to get into what I liked to wear when I was not at school and when I was not at work. And that was a black pair of leggings. And, you know, here's my mom. Oh, that's right, my mom confronted me because she found my duffel bag filled with leggings. And she was just like livid. She was like, you know, I didn't raise a faggot and all that sort of stuff. And I'm just looking at her, and I'm just like, what are you talking about? I've got a girlfriend. In fact, I need to go and see her, or I need to get over to her house now. And right there, right in front of her, I just stripped down and just got into a pair of leggings, and I said, look, I will see you later. I'm going to see her. I mean, she was assuming that I was gay because I wore leggings. And this is a common thing. This happens. And I think it is why we deal with, why we're dealing with people who have no dysphoria saying that they are transgender. And frankly, I wish that sort of thing would stop. I wish more cis males or cis females who would like to have a more free choice of expression would not feel the need to identify as transgender. But that means society's laws or rules need to change. We need to get rid of gender-specific dress codes. End of subject. In all situations. That's my take on that. All right. Let's see. Regardless if you are a trans woman, trans man, a cross-dresser, non-binary, androgynous, gender non-conforming, that's what happened. I think they're relating to how we've created our own communities. I barely have a community. I go into like transgender circles and that sort of thing because, or alternative styles and that sort of thing, because it's really the only area I kind of fit in, aside from the goth community. Yeah, so that's something I'd like for it to change. When I find an androgynous page, I love it. Until I find out that most of the people who are there identify as transgender. To me, that's feeding the stereotype, and it annoys the hell out of me. Oh, excuse me. Okay. I think most of us would believe we are like everyone else, and our feelings are normal and cisgender. If it wasn't for the world picking us apart and shoving us and pushing us away from that, we became who are from society. Yet it's society that now complains about non-binary people, when it's society that created this vacuum because of their checklist agenda in the first place. Yeah, I'm kind of along the lines of my thinking when it comes to transgender, that's for sure. The other thing I want to really point out as to why people dislike androgyny, and I want you to think on this. Trans women and trans men do not feel like a middle gender. They are basically cisgender people who are born in a wrong body. So when they transition and go through an androgynous phase, they don't like it. They are treated as gay people often, and they feel dysphoric and incomplete and awful and feel separated from society. When they fully transition over, they now feel like a full gender and associate that as right and feel normal again and part of society's structure. The term I use is they're just exchanging one crummy set of rules for another crummy set of rules. That's what true transgender people, to me, do. A lot of them, I feel, support and reinforce society's gender rules, which are limiting for everybody. This is confirmed by society when people see them and do not know they are transgender. In other words, the onlooker sees them as someone who is born male or born female, and thus one of them. Society accepts transgender if they look cisgender. Yes, like Caitlyn Jenner doesn't look female, looks very masculine, and will do for the rest of their existence unless they go through some major surgery. They're never going to be accepted as a woman. But Blair White, on the other hand, does. She looks very feminine. Natalie Wynn looks quite feminine. But both those two, by the way, I think I think they've done what they need to do. But they, in ways, they do sort of support stereotypes, and that's one thing I really, really dislike. All right. Now the moment when someone doesn't look cisgender, who is trans, that's how we as a society identify a transgender person. Oh look, that's someone clearly born a male wearing a dress, and I assume wanting to be or think he is a woman. That's a transgender person. They note androgyny born male and male body dressing like a woman equals transgender. Because if they passed, people would never think that they are transgender. They would think they are cisgender and one of them, which shows full complete of being one gender. And even if they don't, we accept them better if their identity is one or the other. Black and white thinking. Black, white thinking. Notice how this individual said, they note androgyny of born male, male body, dressed like a woman, equals transgender. Exactly. That's why I get lumped into the transgender category as well. I do not do any hip forms or anything to appear female or pass as a woman. I am me. That's how it simply is. I have no breast forms. I've got a corset on to make this a little bit more trim, but not really to give me a feminine form. It's more an androgynous form. Hello, androgyny. Okay. This all points to there is something wrong with being half and half, and society's objective is to be fully purified as one or the other as much as possible. This is slowly dying out, and it is due to the transgender movement recognizing non-binary people. But it's not dying out in quite the correct direction. We still have people supporting gender rules and reinforcing gender rules within the transgender community. Even though the reality is, even if their identity is a man or woman, their body, because of transition, is actually androgynous, especially for people who transition during adulthood. One set of hormones already did damage, and now the new hormones did damage, resulting in a body that is a result of one hormones and now the other. That is androgyny, medical androgyny. Then they are born with one genitalia and now changed it to the other. But it's still not the same as one born with it. It's basically an intersex genitalia as androgyny, medical, biological androgyny. This is a dangerous area for this person to have gone into. What they are essentially saying is that a transgender person can never be the other sex. A transsexual person can never be the other sex because there's just things missing. There's abilities being missed that, you know, Laverne Cox looks very much like a woman. And she has transitioned. She's had the bottom surgery, the upper surgery, and all of that. She has changed her body hormonally and physically. She still can't give birth. She's, in a lot of people's eyes, she will never be a biological woman. She is a transgendered woman. Nothing wrong with that. That's the other thing. There's nothing wrong with this. And there is this underlying thought that there is something wrong with it. And that's what's wrong with our culture. Alright, so I'm probably going to stop there. Medical, biological androgyny. I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to I'll continue on later on. I'm going to break this in 2 parts. So that is the first part of this series about androgyny. And I'd like for your input down below. And I will be making the second part. I will be posting a second part later on. Alright. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Oh, wow. Man, look at the shadows. There. You can see my pretty face.